Hi, my name is Tony Doan. I'm a counselor here at Kenneth Young Center, and today we're going to shoot a video on how to manage our emotions in an effective way. Sometimes when we're struggling to manage our emotions, it can lead to some negative consequences in our life, and when we're really upset, it can be that much more difficult. So what we're going to do is work on skills to manage those emotions so we can resolve conflicts and hopefully lead to some more positive, meaningful relationships in our life. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to identify the emotion that we're experiencing. That way we know how to react and respond in a productive way. So, three things that we can identify that can help us identify the emotion is the physiological experience, the cognitive experience, and the behavioral experience related to each emotion. Now let's go through those three things. Physiological are those physical things that we experience inside of our body. Some examples include heart racing, muscle tension, and feeling flush or hot in your face or any area of your body, really. Okay, so some cognitive things that we might experience are, let's say we're feeling angry, we might have some thoughts of being aggressive or responding in a very aggressive way to somebody. Some people notice that their thoughts race when they're experiencing anger. Okay, and finally, behavioral responses. When we're feeling intensely emotional or angry or maybe even anxious, we might clench our fist, clench our jaw, we might move our arms or pace. But there are a lot of different identifiers for different emotions, and it's different for everybody. So what you need to do to be able to identify your emotion is pay attention to yourself and identify what things in these three categories fit you in different emotions and situations. Alright, so to help us determine when our emotional intensity might be getting a little dangerous and could lead to some possible negative consequences, we have our scale here, and we scaled it from 1 being the least all the way over to 10. Okay, so we want to identify how intense our emotions are using those three categories we just talked about. Now, when you're feeling, let's say, a little bit angry, you might get a little bit warm and notice that you're having some minor changes. Now, as the emotional intensity gets greater, though, and you get further and further up the scale, you might notice that your physiological signs change, okay? And this is where you really need to pay attention to how you experience your emotion and notice the intensity as it increases. What sort of things are going on physiologically, cognitively, and behaviorally as you get closer and closer to 10. Now, we identify when you get around 7, we call that the danger zone. So when you get that intensely emotional, it gets harder and harder to make decisions in a rational way. So we want to be able to identify when we're getting up there that, hey, this might be a sign that we need to start using skills in order to manage our emotions and maybe remove ourselves from the situation. So identify the intensity, okay, and what sort of things are going on again physiologically, behaviorally, and cognitively when you're getting more emotionally intense. Alright, so once you've identified that maybe your emotions are getting a little too intense and it's time to do something to help yourself calm down a little bit, then we want to work on using these skills to reduce the intensity of our emotions. So the first thing I want to review is how do we use our breathing skills in order to help ourselves calm down? Well, we want to breathe from our diaphragm. And one way to identify that we're doing this is we put one hand on our chest and one hand on our stomach, and then we breathe in nice and deep, and we notice when we're taking a deep breath, if we're breathing from our diaphragm, our stomach's going to come out just a little bit more than our chest does. Now, we don't want to breathe in really hard and hold our breath like, because that's not going to do anybody any good. We want to take a deep breath, and we want to breathe from our diaphragm in order to slow our heart rate down. Because a lot of times when we're getting intensely emotional, our heart rate is racing. So after we've mastered deep breathing skills, we can do a meditation exercise, okay? Up here are some links of good videos that can help you use meditation exercises and other skills that you can use in order to help yourself calm down. Some important things to note when you're doing a meditation is You want to be in a nice relaxing setting, okay? So trying to meditate at a rock concert or someplace that's really loud is going to be really difficult. So if you can find a nice quiet place to go to, okay, that would be the best place. And also you want to go to a place where you can sit in a comfortable position, okay? We don't want to have arms twisted or crossed. We want to try and relax our muscles and be in a position where we can breathe easily, okay? If we're slouching down or sitting cross, it's going to be much more difficult to breathe in deeply and easily, okay? So sitting nice and straight up, with our feet touching the floor and nothing crossed, it's going to allow us to take those nice deep breaths and help ourselves calm down a little bit. Alright, so once you've calmed down a little bit, you can try and come back to address whatever situation has led to you feeling more emotionally intense. So in order to address the situation and use your communication skills, first we have to understand the 4 different types of communication. So the first one being aggressive. So this type of communication, we're using overly aggressive tones, or we might be using threatening language in order to try to get our needs met or what we want from the other person. So if you're finding that you're in a screaming match, you might be using some aggressive communication. While this can get our needs met, it most often has some negative consequences for the relationship, or hopefully not, but maybe some legal consequences as well. Hopefully we don't get there though. Assertive communication is the next communication we'll go over, and most often this is the most productive form of communication. In this form of communication, we're letting the other person know what we would like, why we're upset, what we're upset about, and we're trying to find a good common ground with the person that we're communicating with. Okay. The next form of communication is passive communication. In this communication style, we might not be using language to stand up for ourselves and allowing the other person to get their needs met without voicing our concerns, okay? And while this might not lead to conflict, over time, passive communication can lead to aggressive communication, because we can only take so much, and if we're not getting our needs met for a long time, we might end up exploding at the person for something that might be menial and has nothing to do with the reason why we're upset. Okay, and the final form is passive-aggressive communication. Now, this form of communication, a good example is using sarcasm. So if you're really upset about something and you're not directly saying you're upset, but you're using roundabout language in order to let the person know. It's much more productive to directly address what you're upset about in an assertive way. Okay, so in order to use assertive communication more, we're going to go over something called an I feel statement. So what we want to do to address a situation in an assertive way is use an I feel statement. So we created this template for I feel statements that allows us to insert different situations or different things into a general I feel statement. So what we want to do is we want to use I feel blank, when you blank, and I would like blank. So you can insert any sort of situation into an I feel statement. That way you're able to address your needs in an assertive way with the other person that you want to work with. For example, you would say, I feel upset when you don't call me after work. I would like you to call me so that I know that you're safe. Some major issues that have come up in recent years with the use of social media and technology as a form of communication is cyberbullying and general aggressive communication over the internet. Now, while this seems like a minor issue, it can definitely affect people in a very negative way. Now, when we're not looking at somebody directly and we're not seeing them face to face, it can be difficult to have empathy or understand how our words are affecting them. However, reading these things, hearing about these things, and understanding that people are saying very hurtful things about you can have real negative effects. There is somebody out there that is reading this, and it is affecting them in a very negative way. Okay, so be mindful of the way you're communicating, even if it is on the internet and they're not in front of you. It is affecting the person that you're speaking to. And while most of us know this, it's important to understand that the internet is forever. It doesn't go away. It stays up there, and you can't get rid of it. So be wary of the things that you put up there, because you never know when it could be used against you in the future. So to wrap up the things we talked about, we've talked about identifying the emotion, using skills, and then communicating after we've used those skills to calm down a little bit. It's important to understand our emotions, and in order to have productive, positive relationships, we need to be able to communicate when we are frustrated in an assertive way. That way we don't have negative consequences, and we don't end up having a lot of strife in relationships when we're able to address the minor conflicts before they become overly problematic. If you find that you're having some problems with managing your anger or other intense emotions, Kenneth Young Center offers an anger management course that I run. Currently it's running Mondays from 6 to 8, and if you're interested, you can contact me at 847-524-8800, extension 164, and I'd be happy to talk with you about the anger management course.